So some of these examples we actually discussed in the previous couple of videos, but I wanted to provide some more examples to make it even more clear. So if we think of opportunity cost as what you give up to get something else, then by sleeping through a scheduled class, I guess not technically any of these videos since you can watch these whenever you want, you give up learning the material covered in class that day, which hopefully also has value. And so if we think of the opportunity cost, which I may abbreviate as OC, as the lost opportunity of something else, then by spending money on video games, we lose the opportunity to spend that money on dining out at a restaurant, which we are hopefully able to do that again sometime soon. So finally, the opportunity cost of marrying someone is the lost opportunity to marry someone else. We could also think of the opportunity cost of marrying someone as the value of the next best alternative. In other words, how happy you would have been marrying another suitable mate. Each of these three definitions would work to describe each of these examples of the opportunity cost. But when you think of opportunity cost, it's helpful to think of each of those definitions to reinforce that the real cost of something is what we're giving up to get it, and it's the value of the next best alternative. Probably the best example of opportunity cost, though, is time. While introducing TSA screening at airports following September 11th has hopefully delivered significant benefits, it's also come at a sizable cost. In addition to the cost of the metal detectors, body scanners, and the labor of the TSA employees, the additional screening has cost every traveler somewhere around 30 minutes of their time per flight that they take. Because individuals could be spending that time doing something more enjoyable than standing in line and taking off their shoes and their belt and walking through a body scanner, that time has opportunity cost. The value of the next best alternative, the value of what else you could have been doing with that time. Economists often have to think of the monetary value of time. What is the dollar value of a person's time? What's the dollar value of 30 minutes? A good first guess may be that it is the amount of money that they could be making if they were working their hourly wage. If you earn $12 an hour, then maybe the value of your time is $12. However, when we observe the decisions that individuals actually make, they tend to value their time at about 33 to 50% of their hourly wage. So if someone earns $30 per hour at their job and they are caught in traffic for 1 hour on their way home, the opportunity cost of that hour may be estimated to be $10 to $15. If you take environmental economics, we will talk about this in a lot more detail. It's actually, I think, a pretty interesting example of economics. But finally, let's discuss the opportunity cost of college, as I think this is something that's underappreciated when we think about the real cost of attending college. So as was illustrated in the example in the previous couple of videos on the opportunity cost of a professional degree, professional graduate degree, the opportunity cost is not only the amount of tuition which you are paying to attend college, but also the amount of income which you are giving up by not working full time. If you follow that link, I know you can't click on it because this is a video, but if you enter that into your browser, then you will see that K College still a good investment. However, I don't think that this website considers the opportunity cost of the potential for you to be a long distance truck driver earning $70,000 a year instead of attending K. If they did, the real opportunity cost of attending Kalamazoo College would not be the roughly $240,000 in tuition, but the real cost would be the cost of tuition plus the 4 years of salary as a trucker. And so let's say that you can earn $70,000 as a long distance truck driver And so for 4 years, if you do that, that's $280,000. So if we were to think about what is the real total cost of attending K, we're looking at $280,000 of opportunity costs plus $240,000 in tuition, which is $520,000, which is significantly higher. Now, to be fair, the real benefits are also much higher than the salary as you end up earning by attending college. I would not have found my wife had I not attended the college that I did, nor would I have become the person who I am today. And it's really hard to put a price on both of those, and I would consider both to be invaluable. However, the point still stands that opportunity cost matters a lot. And so if we want to make efficient decisions, we do need to consider the opportunity cost. Now, returning to another one of our core principles of the rational rule, the law of diminishing marginal utility explains why consumers often prefer combinations of goods rather than a lot of one good and none of another. So we think of consumers as more often than not demonstrating behavior where they would buy 8 bus tickets and 3 burgers instead of 20 bus tickets and no burgers. So each marginal unit of consumption of a good is thought to bring us a little less happiness than the unit before it. This does not mean that it is bringing us negative happiness. It's not making us unhappy, just that it's bringing a little bit less happiness than the previous unit we consume. So the standard example of the law of diminishing marginal utility is that of eating an indulgence such as a donut. If you are like me, eating the first donut makes you really happy. And I'll usually even have 2 or 3 donuts. But the second and third donuts are less enjoyable than the first one because I start thinking about how many sweets or calories I really should be eating, and I start to become full. I may even want a saltier or meatier food in addition to all of the sugar which I'm consuming. If you ever go to Columbus, Ohio, which is where I attended graduate school, Buckeye Donuts has a phenomenal maple donut with a big, thick strip of salty bacon on top, and it is really good. So back to our donut example, the 6th donut or so may actually bring us negative happiness as it becomes uncomfortable to try to fit another maple long john in my stomach. So this is different from the law of diminishing marginal returns, which we will consider shortly in our next video. You can distinguish them by remembering that utility means happiness. And we think of the consumer and individuals as having happiness, where returns refers to production, which implies a company or firm. So I've got a little comic strip here, which is a utility monster. And this is a just classic conundrum from moral philosophy. And the utility monster is a philosophical device that's used to show the shortcomings of a consequential form of ethics, where the utility monster is a way of showing that it's possible that it would be ethical to cause a great deal of harm to everybody, so long as that there is one person or one being which is deriving a greater deal of happiness from everybody else suffering. So that's hopefully just another way of remembering that utility means happiness, and law of diminishing marginal utility refers to consumers who are buying things, who are becoming happy from what they buy. So another important concept, which is related to some of our fundamental principles of rational economic behavior, is that of sunk costs. Importantly, this does not say skunk costs, as I have unfortunately seen some students think in the past. So a sunk cost is a cost which has occurred in the past and does not occur on the margin, so we should completely ignore them when we make rational decisions. And it's actually a logical fallacy is a miscalculation. It is a poor use of our rational thinking capabilities for us to consider sunk costs when we make decisions. So some examples of sunk costs are having sat through 60 minutes of a 90-minute long movie and thinking this movie is terrible. I paid $10 for the movie ticket and it's almost over, and I would just be wasting that $10 by not finishing the movie. But by doing this, you're falling for the sunk cost fallacy because you are not thinking on the margin like a good rational individual who should be considering how they can best spend their next 30 minutes of time. And if you would be happier heading out to a park for 30 minutes than sitting through a 30 minutes more of a bad movie, then you should ditch the theater and head to the park. Similarly, if a country is 10 years into a war and realizes there is no way that we can win this, but we can't withdraw our troops now because then all the troops who we have lost in the past 10 years would have died for nothing, then that country is falling prey to the sunk cost fallacy. There is nothing which can be done about the lives of the soldiers who have already died, and the country needs to think about the lives of the marginal soldier, of the soldiers which they are thinking about deploying in the new war, and how they can save their lives by not sending them to an unwinnable war. Lastly, if a couple is 30 years into a bad marriage and realizes that they would not be happy for the remaining 30 years of their lives together, and they could get divorced, they are wasting, but they don't get divorced because they think they would be wasting the previous 30 years, then this is also succumbing to the sunk cost fallacy. They need to think about what would make them happiest for each additional, each incremental, each marginal year ahead, and to be thinking on the margin about should I stay married for this coming year or not, and does that benefit of staying married outweigh the cost? So tying it all together, tying the law of diminishing marginal utility, which I abbreviated DMU, and opportunity cost, which I abbreviate OC, and connecting that to the budget constraint, we can actually learn a lot just by looking at the budget constraint. So we think that the law of diminishing marginal utility informs us that consumers prefer a mixture of goods rather than all or nothing. And so they're more likely to want to consume points B, C, and D, and E over points A and F. But to know which of those they would really prefer, we need to understand their preferences and their utility functions, which we're not going to do in this class, but you will need to do in Econ 305, Intermediate Microeconomics, and we will more than cover it in detail at that point in time. In addition to thinking about the law of diminishing marginal utility, we can think about the opportunity cost as demonstrated in this budget constraint. So we can think that the opportunity cost of a bus ticket is how many burgers we have to give up to get one bus ticket. And so we can see that if we want to get 4 bus tickets, we have to give up 1 burger. So the opportunity cost of 4 bus tickets is 1 burger, and we can simplify that fraction to show that the opportunity cost of 1 bus ticket is 1/4 of a burger. And we could also find the opportunity cost then by dividing the price of one of these by the price of the other. So the opportunity cost of a bus ticket is the price of a bus ticket divided by the price of a burger, which is that same 0.25 burgers per bus ticket. On the other hand, the price of 1 burger, so if we want to go from 4 burgers to 5 burgers, then we have to go from 4 bus tickets to 0 bus tickets. So the opportunity cost of 1 burger, what we give up to get that 1 burger, is 4 bus tickets. So if you can understand that conceptualization, that application of opportunity cost, then the model of comparative advantage is going to be a piece of cake for you. And we will, in the next video, start thinking about how the rational rule applies to social decisions made in the structure of how our individuals interact instead of just atomistic individual decisions.